Hi everybody, my name is Martin. This is Anki 2026. So I'm giving an Anki workshop again this year to incoming NYU students. I'm recording my new and improved lecture, so here it is. This is divided into two parts. In reality, the video and kind of the first part of the lecture is just Anki theory. It's all the things that you need to know about Anki in medical school. And then part two is actually kind of using Anki, the hands-on Anki, and I'll show you what that looks like at the end of the video, but essentially you're getting the first part, that kind of all the players, who is Anking, Ankihub, what are the third-party resources, all that stuff. So why am I giving you this talk? I have done a lot of Anki, like 300,000 reviews since coming to medical school, and so that means that I've taken a flashcard on Anki and flipped it 300,000 times. For in-house exams, this let me have good scores. So the average for our class was in the 90s, and here was kind of trended over time, and I was scoring consistently above that. For step one, this is the first major licensing exam you will take that covers preclinical content. It's standardized, it's like 8 hours long, and people do a dedicated similar to the MCAT. It's 4 to 6 weeks, and you take a practice test that gives you a % chance of passing within 1 week of taking that test. And within just 4 days of my kind of not dedicated right after preclinical ended, I had a 99% chance of passing, effectively meaning I did not need to do a dedicated at all. And I think this was all foundational to how I performed in preclinical to clerkship year, and I did well on all the clerkship exams because I had a good foundation, a good base, and I used Anki in clerkship year as well, scoring in the high percentiles for each shelf, and kind of a little around the 80th percentile for neurology. So in less than a week, you will have your first lecture, right? And then you'll have your first exam. And probably right now you're stressed, right? There's a lot of these different resources out there. How do you study in medical school? You have to restart, and everything you worked in undergrad no longer counts. And so hopefully I can kind of zoom out. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but hopefully in a big picture, I'm going to answer two big questions. The first question is how. How should you study, right? I'm going to give an experiment, right? If you randomize half a room to a 25-pound dumbbell that they can do curls with, and the other half of the room to a 1-pound dumbbell, and you ask the question, who will build muscle faster? Not who will be the biggest, strongest, not just faster. The answer is always going to be the 25-pound dumbbell, right? There's more stimulus on the muscle. It's going to respond with hypertrophy faster, right? It's the same thing with flashcards. If I say, who will memorize a piece of information, a lecture, a chapter faster, if I give half a room a flashcard and half the room notes that they can write, read, listen to lectures, these kind of passive learning techniques, every single time the flashcard will win. And your brain loves this, right? Because this is stimulus for the brain. It'll actually encode it. It'll remember it faster, right? Just about speed. It's about 2 to 5 times faster, but don't quote me on that statistic. This is active recall. It's nothing new. NYU integrates this in their curriculum. They have tester cells, which is their own internal question bank. There are third-party question banks like Amboss and uWorld that NYU actually pays for, that are more geared towards step one content, that have multiple choice formats. There are seminars, so small group discussions where you can answer questions as a team with a faculty facilitator, and then applying it on the wards. There's nothing more active than applying it on the wards. And when a patient asks you a question, or when an attending asks you a question and it's pertinent to patient care, that stuff sticks. Yet there's still gonna be people that look at first aid. So this is a big prep book. It's about 800 pages long, and people use it to study for step one, and it covers basically everything you need to know for step one. But people insist on highlighting it and underlining it, and there's these formats of going through it, and if you read on Reddit, they'll say you got to read it 3 times cover to cover or you can't pass step one. I've never once opened up step one. I've never opened up the book and read it, but I know everything that was on this page when I took step one. Why? Because I was converting everything into a flashcard. If the data is correct, I did it 2 to 5 times faster. So hopefully how is answered, right? Save your time with active recall. Doesn't matter what resource you choose, you will save a ton of time if you use active recall. My active recall was Anki. Anki is a flashcard app, which means that I can only do flashcards and I can't accidentally do, reading notes, rereading notes, etc. And that's good for me because when your brain gets tired, it's going to default to these maybe easier study methods that you think you're being productive, but you're not. On top of that, Anki lets you put in pictures, right? Because it's digital. And you can really quickly cover up all the names on a diagram and create 7 flashcards within seconds. Additionally, it has audio format, right? It's digital, which is helpful because on the NBME, step 1, there are actual, you have to listen to like heart sounds and answer what they are in a clinical vignette. So that's helpful. And then it's digital, so you can do it on the comfort of your computer or your phone. So that's how, I use Anki. I think you should use Active Recall. I use Anki. It worked great for me. What about when? When should you study, right? This is another kind of hard question to answer. Well, take this, for consideration. When you learn a piece of information, your brain starts a timer. When that timer hits 0, your brain deletes the information, right? It's letting that information run out. And so now when you have, this timer counting down and what's going on, you want to review that information, right? When you review it, it resets the timer, right? So every time you learn information, that timer runs out. But now I don't actually need to review information here. I can kind of wait. My brain's remembering it for me. And so really the best, most efficient time to review is right before the timer hits 0. Because if you review right here, that means that you spent, your brain's holding it for you. You're not reviewing it more than you have to, and you're reviewing it right before you forget. Essentially, you're trying to catch an egg right before it falls. And so if you review it right here, you can, get a coffee or watch a movie, right, while your brain is remembering it while your egg is up here. Your brain actually loves this, right? So not only does it reset the timer, it actually doubles the timer. When you give it this suspense of like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot this information, then it'll double the timer for you. And you can use this doubling effect to double from 1 day of remembering a card to 2 days, to 4 days, to 1 week. And then you can get this card to step 1, right? This one flashcard, this one unit of information. It only takes 6 reviews. At 10 seconds of review, right? 10 seconds for that flashcard, flip it, you got it right, move on. This will take you 60 seconds to get a piece of information to step 1. That's incredibly powerful, and that is called spatial repetition. So in these big gaps where the time doubles, you have free time. Watch a movie, and in reality, in medical school, you end up just studying more content, but you do get more free time. So when should you study? Right before you forget. You can have basically no dedicated period if you study with spatial repetition. Okay. I will not blame you if right now you're telling me, hey, when do I study? You didn't tell me that, right? It's all well and good if you just say it's a minute, I'll study in the last second, but what about on the order of days? Well, they've done research on this, right? They've studied participants and they've seen how quickly you forget things, and the funny thing is within 20 minutes you forget 58% of what was said. So before a lecture is even over, you've already forgotten half of it. But I don't like kind of like applying literature in real time, so I just give a flashcard to Anki. I feed it to Anki, and Anki says do it in 14 days, right? It thinks I'm going to forget it in 15 days, so do it 1 day before, right? That's the most efficient day to do it. And what it's doing is it's applying the research, right? It's taking the research and applying it, and then guessing when you should do it. But, it's 2026, and I think since 22 or 23, Anki has been taking your unique review history, how long you've spent on the card, how hard that card is, how old that card is, and 17 other parameters in a logistics, time-based heuristics model, and it gives you a prediction. Do it in 16.9 days, right? Like the exact date based off of your unique memory style, how good you are at remembering cards. And you may call this AI, but Anki calls this FSRS, the free spatial repetition algorithm. Since AI, FSRS, this is just math, right? It's just a big algorithm, big formula that can guess with pretty good accuracy when you should do a card. So it'll tell you, hey, do it in 16 days. What this means is over the course of the year, you will not have the same FSRS algorithm. On the first day of medical school, you'll use a pretty standard research algorithm. But by the end of the year, you will have your own unique FSRS algorithm that'll know you, your memorization style, your patterns, when you forget stuff, when you don't forget stuff, and it'll be much closer to the reality of remembering when to catch that stuff. That also means you will not have the same FSRS as your neighbor, because they might be better at memorization or worse, or they might be studying much better and incorporate that information much better, right, to begin with, and their FSRS will be much nicer and give them nice big review intervals. Let's take a break and review. So what is Anki? It's a flashcard app that's used in medical school. What algorithm does Anki use to schedule its spatial repetition? It uses FSRS, the free spatial repetition algorithm. And how often should I retrain my FSRS, right? We said it was AI, right? So how often should I retrain it based off of my review data? I did it monthly, but honestly, I forgot to do it, so it's not that big of a deal, right? If somebody tells you, hey, you really need to review very often, it'll be okay. I forgot to do it, and it was fine. Should I be thinking about step one, right? I'm giving this talk in orientation. Should I be thinking about step one, on day 2 of orientation? No, you do not have to, okay? I think it helps to know where you're going, and it was helpful for me. I kind of committed to step 1, day 1, right? But for you, if you're okay with doing a dedicated, and you're okay with just kind of, and maybe you want to rehash the content twice, right? You want to do a second pass. I was okay with just going in and doing step 1, kind of thinking about where I was going on the first day. Do I need to use Anki? Absolutely not. Okay, everybody at NYU is incredibly smart, talented, and you could use the worst possible study method or a different study method, and you will be very, very successful, and you'll probably score higher than people that used Anki. It's just a tool that you can use, and if you like it, I think it's a very powerful tool. Okay, so remember how Anki guesses when you need to do a card? So do it in 16 days, and then it says, hey, what percentage of the time is this actually correct, right? Because this is useless if at a certain point, it doesn't actually guess correctly. And 90% of the time it's correct. What it's doing is, right at the last second, right, it's telling you, hey, do this card, but it's gonna, what is it? You have to break some eggs to make an omelet, right? So 90% of the time it's gonna be correct, but 10% of the time it's gonna, say, oh, here's a card, and you've already forgotten it. But you can see how there's really only one way to improve this accuracy, and it's to improve this threshold and increase this threshold to a higher value. And so if you catch eggs earlier, you get less free time, but now you're more accurate. And so there's this very famous graph. It's called retention in Anki. Like, how are you retaining this information? If you want 90% retention, right, 90% accuracy, you're going to do 1 unit of work. But very quickly, as you want to be more accurate, you're going to end up doing much more work, right? And the biggest bang for your buck, I think, is at 90%. If you go backwards, you could do 80% of the work, but you're not really getting much in terms of accuracy. And then if you move up, you're doing a lot more work for a little bit of accuracy. 90% is more than good enough. Passing step, is in the 70s, so you don't need 100% accuracy to pass step at all. So I see Anki as this vault, right? As this vault over time that I'm putting cards in, right? And I have 20,000 cards in my vault that I have a 90% chance of getting out. That's really helpful when you're studying for a step 2 exam. Okay, so you have a new card, right? How do I put this new card into my vault, right? Well, Anki doesn't just let you give cards into FSRS. It doesn't know when to schedule it. So the first thing you have to do is actually learn the card, right? To physically pick up the card and study it. And during my talk, I'll have some flashcards. I'm gonna say you have to actually literally look at it, right? And study it. And so what you do is you take a new card and it becomes a learning card. And you have to study it. You have to put in the work and study it. And so you have to tell Anki, I got this card right once, if twice, and actually 10 minutes apart. So you can't just, study really quickly while you remember it. You have to, give it some space. And Anki will schedule it for you, but you have to do it basically twice. And then FSRS will take it and tell you, hey, on the calendar, got to do it in 3 days. And then in 3 days, that card will be there waiting for you to study. Okay. So new cards become learning cards go into FSRS, and then it's the algorithm that tells you when you should do it. I like to see this as seeds. These are seeds that are ready to be planted, right? These are new cards. They're full of potential, but they're really not anything. You haven't even seen them really. And really you have to plant them, right? You have to plant the seeds, and that's learning the cards. And this is actually the hardest part of studying. That's going to be the hardest, most effortful part. And then there's FSRS, which is when you just water the plants. It just tells you, hey, this is when you should water it. And every time you water it, the next time you gotta water it, even less, okay? So it's a higher interval. And so this part is actually easy. And you do this every day. Learning, you don't have to do every day. So, go out there and plant, but before you do, just remember, before you go crazy, every plant that you plant, you're gonna be responsible for then watering, right? To every card that you put into your learning cards into FSRS, you're gonna want to study, or else it's kind of a waste. And so really, you control how many seeds you plant. And you should never plant, only plant as many seeds as you can water. Quoting myself here. So how many C's did I plan? So NYU is split into 2 weeks. And the first week, you have essentially on a 2-week schedule with an exam at the end. And the first week, you have a bunch of lectures. So I'm doing a lot of cards, 175 per day. That's a lot of cards that I'm doing. I'm getting right twice, and I'm giving them to FSRS. And so I was planting like crazy. And over the course of the year, I planted 20,000 cards by the end of that year, right? But in week 2, there's a lot of seminars, review lectures, and kind of like consolidation. So I didn't do a lot of new cards. I just did review cards, I did seminars, I did Amboss, uWorld, and test yourselves to really integrate and consolidate that information. And so really, my second week was a lot more chill. Okay, how many new cards should I do? As many as you can handle, okay? I did 175 per day. You might not be able to. That was 35 per lecture. If you do 50 cards per day, those are 50 cards that you have in a vault that you can then access for step 1. If you do 20, that's fine. It's not a zero-sum game. How many reviews did I do per day? So I did 200 to 300 reviews per day. This is my daily watering to sustain 20,000 cards by the end of the year. So let's look at it. Over the course of medical school, my reviews were going up, and I peaked at about 300 reviews. And so, what is this number going to go up at day 75 of medical school? No, it actually kind of goes down, right? Because your reviews space out, and then you have a winter break, and you leave, you come back. So I never did less than 200 reviews per day, which is about 30 minutes of reviewing, not much. And I really didn't do that many more than 300, except for towards the end of the year where we had a really heavy neuroanatomy block. Okay, do I need to use Anki? No. All right, why is Anki number 1? Why, is it the spatial repetition, right? It's ability to catch eggs. Is it active recall? It's very good on the brain, on the mind, right? Why is there some crazy person in front of you telling you about Anki during orientation? It's not the spatial repetition. It's not the active recall. Actually, it's because when a person uses Anki, they create cards. And when cards are created, more people use Anki because they can use those cards, and then more cards are created, and it creates this, New York City. The more people use Anki, the more cards are created. It's a positive feedback loop, right? I had 20,000 cards in my vault, right? I didn't create them. At 10 seconds a card, that saved me 111 hours of work, right? Those cards were already created for me, ready for me to do active recall, and I did the active recall, and I had that information in my head. Okay, so why is Anki number 1? It's the ecosystem. It's the ecosystem is why NYU creates cards for every single one of its lectures. It's the ecosystem why the University of Michigan has a very robust cadaver specimen diagram Anki deck that you can use during your anatomy block. And it's the reason why step 1 has a card for every definition, table, page, everything in this book already has a card for it, which is insane. You don't have to do that work. The ecosystem took care of you. Okay, let's talk about the ecosystem, big picture. So you will have in-house materials, resources, and really I'm looking at lectures. And for every lecture you have, there's gonna be like 50 resources that you can use that correspond to that lecture. For example, cardiology, bradycardia, right? The heart is beating slow. Well, there's going to be videos for it, articles for it, everything, textbooks for it. So there's an in-house and a bunch of third-party resources that can help you basically prepare, consolidate, replace whatever you want to do for that in-house resource. Generally, in-house resources are slower, 60-minute lectures, right, an hour long, and they're really well for in-house exams, right? They kind of gear you to what the examiners and test writers want you to know. Versus third-party is faster, right? It's much more efficient, it's recorded, it's usually scripted, 10 to 25 minutes, and it's step 1 focused, right? There's great overlap. If anything, there's really good overlap, right? Because, bradycardia, the heart beating slow in a human being, will be the same in a third-party resource as at NYU. And so what ends up happening is if you have a cardiology lecture in the morning, the night before you could watch a quick cardiology video, 10 minutes, to kind of prime your brain to build a scaffold that then you can act on and really retain and take in information better the next morning. I call this preparing. Or you can go to lecture, watch the lecture in person, and then you can review afterwards and kind of consolidate and clear up any, anything you were confused about. I didn't like this because I found myself getting lost in lecture and then having to kind of catch back up. I like being prepared, but that's just kind of my personality and my style. So what is that overlap? Well, it's about 75%, which is pretty good. That means you can pass NYU with only doing third parties and pass step 1 with only doing NYU. Generally, third parties will bias in the direction of step 1 and cover more step 1 content than NYU, and NYU will cover more clinical content than third parties, right, to kind of prepare you for the wards and to prepare you in the mission that they want for you to become a doctor, right? But this overlap, it's not always perfect. Sometimes there's lectures, rarely, that have zero overlap. Like it's just a purely custom in-house lecture that's made for some other reason that's not for step 1. And then there's going to be 100% overlap. I mean, these are like one for one. Maybe they got inspired by Boards and Beyond or Sketchy when they made the lecture. And this overlap is great, but what third-party resource should I use, right? Third party. What are we talking about here? So this is what I'm talking about. The third party, there's many of them. They're usually videos, and I'll show you them, right? So one of them is Boards and Beyond. It's by a cardiologist. They're pretty short videos. They're comprehensive. They cover most NYU content. Some of the stuff is not covered, but they cover 100% of Step 1 content. So if you watch it, you'll be well prepared. And so let's watch a quick demo clip.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our module on bile. Bile is a substance that is produced in the liver and then stored in the gallbladder, and after a meal, it is...
Perfect. So essentially, I hope that you can see here that, there's a PowerPoint. He underlines stuff. He talks about it. He narrates. Very comprehensive, very simple, very easy to digest, and very quick. He makes videos basically he made videos for basically every topic in medical school. Then there's Pathoma. So this is a pathologist. Same thing. Pretty short, comprehensive, covers most NYU content and all of Step 1 content pretty much. Or it has like overlap with Step 1 content. But he didn't make a video for everything. And I like his voice. I don't know, I like his style. And so this is...
The next to the normal cytic anemias are those with predominantly intravascular hemolysis. And the first of them that we want to cover is paroxysmal nocturnal.
Hopefully you can see, right? PowerPoint, underlining, lectures, etc. All right, so Sketchy. Sketchy is another great one that I loved. This is also short, but it's good for memorization because basically they draw out this big diagram, and if you can remember the picture, they'll tell you, oh, hey, this pot represents this. It covers a lot of NYU content. I remember there's a microbiology test where this was very helpful, and this covers 100% of Step 1 content.
You'll notice I've gotten really fast.
And so hopefully you'll see here that as they're kind of sketching
I guess it's just
out.
Practice. What can I say? Anyway, here's Moses. He's carrying a very impressive golden staff. The golden staff of Staff Aureus. Notice his robes are
all the different parts of the sketch, right? There's the guy in the robe, right? If you remember that he has a purple robe on, which is actually really easy to remember. Like your brain has very good, kind of visual memory. If you remember that he has a purple robe, you'll remember that Staff Aureus, right, with the staff, is a gram-positive rod. Okay, so. And then by the end of the sketch, they'll have like all these kind of very like diagrammed out things, and you'll be able to remember like a lot of these things. I still remember this kind of mayonnaise and meat at the bottom. Osmosis is another kind of drawing animation. It's really comprehensive and covers a lot of NYU content actually, but it's not really good for STEP. It kind of ends up over covering for STEP, so it's a pretty lower yield resource because it's more detailed. If you're confused and you're like, whoa, what resource should I use? This is the kind of algorithm I used. If it was microbiology or pharmacology, I used Sketchy. If there's a Pathoma video, I used Pathoma because I really like Pathoma, but Pathoma, there's not a video for every single lecture. And if not, I used Boards and Beyond, okay? And if I was still confused, I didn't understand what was going on after an in-house lecture, after Boards and Beyond, after Pathoma, whatever, I would watch Osmosis just to kind of like clean this up. And I only really did this like 2 or 3 times throughout the entire year. Okay, let's break. What is the third party? It's a collection of basically usually video resources that cover medical school content that you can use to prime, review, replace, whatever you want to do your medical school curriculum. For example, Boards and Beyond, Pathoma, Sketchy, Bootcamp, etc. Can I pass NYU exams without a third party? 100%. If anything, they're just an extra resource for you to prepare for lectures and put in the bank for Step 1. All right, so you prepare the night before, right? You prepare, you watch a lecture video the night before, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, I forgot everything, right? You watch the video, you go to sleep, you wake up, you forgot everything. And the reason why is because you did not do the committing step, right? You did not do the thing that will actually cement it in your brain, and that is Anki. You got to do some active recall in the middle. right? So Anki here, do I have to now basically create a bunch of cards, right? I'm watching this 10 to 25 minute video, but are you telling me to do a lot more work? And the answer is no. Back in 2018, there was a medical student, Lolana Kopp, who watched the Boards and Beyond videos and made 5,000 cards. So if you watch Boards and Beyond, you don't got to do it. Then there was Anki, who liked Pathoma and liked the first aid book and made 20,000 cards. So you're in luck if you're using these resources. And if anything, this is an example of a card. MIs commonly involve the blank artery. And when you get the answer, they put in all these extra diagrams for you. So these cards are actually really high quality and can save you a ton of time and ton of studying time, right? So it's not just creating the cards, but also studying. And they actually included screenshots of the relevant first aid content because that's what it was based off of. And then came around Tyler Beauchamp. They call him the Anking, who took these decks, right, these divided decks, and compiled them into one unified Anking super deck. And this is the Anking deck. It has 42,000, if anything, probably more cards now. And so he came in, unfortunately, or fortunately, he came clean, okay? And so, he consolidated these, he started kind of like monetizing it, and he came clean. So he got rid of this, pictures of first aid, right? Because if you don't own first aid, this would be copywritten content that you're distributing online, which is not allowed. And what about the Ankihub, right? Everybody, Anking, Ankihub, what's going on here? So when you search up Anking, the Ankihub comes up. So what is going on? So I got to tell you a story. So sharing is caring, right? So back in the day, when you had a lab report, right, you'd write it up on Word and you'd send it to your friend, and then they would, edit it, and then they send it to their friend Lucy, and then Lucy would send it back to you, and then you'd submit it to the professor, right? Because we didn't have any kind of real-time collaboration. Well, now we have Google Docs, right? One document, everybody can just edit it. Well, in Anki right now, we have the same thing, right? Bob has to send his deck to Wei, right? His set of flashcards to Wei. Wei makes some edits, sends it to Lucy, right? It's just this kind of, circle. And now we have real-time collaboration, and this is the Ankihub, right? It's the Google Docs of Anki, and it's made by the same Anking guy, right? This Tyler Beauchamp fella. The problem is he charges $6 a month per seat to use it, which is quite a lot. And to kind of sweeten the deal, he throws in the Anking deck, right? Because the Anking deck will have this real-time collaboration, and you'll get daily updates. So if they change something, a guideline changes, they'll update it in the deck, or they add new pictures, they kind of clean things up, errors, etc. So you pay $6 to the Ankihub, they give you the Anking deck. Well, you have to do a monthly subscription every month, $6. And so if you cancel it, you get to keep the Anking deck, right? You lose the updates, but you keep the Anking deck. And so this is what I do. Really, there is not enough updates in medicine to justify monthly updates, $6 a month, right? It is what it is. And so if you have this file, right? Because once you have the Anking, you can share it with your friends, right? Make edits. So in theory, if somebody gave this to you, you could have the Anking. Okay, let's break. So what is the Anking? It's a super deck of 42,000 flashcards centered around third-party resources for step 1 and step 2. What is the Ankihub? Well, the Ankihub is the Google Docs for Anki, allowing users to sync their edits. Should I pay for the Ankihub? I don't think so. I've paid for it 3 times, start of MS1, start of MS2, and then literally, I think yesterday. So the Anking file. Somebody gives you this Anking file. What do you do with it? Well, you just click on it, and then it imports cards into your Anki. And there you go. You got all the flashcards. So the problem is there's 42,000 cards. It creates a mess inside your Anki. So what you have to do is you have to clean them up, right? When you first import a card, you have to first clean them up, and you have to put them in the nice little filing cabinet, okay? And so this is called suspending your cards. You're archiving them, you're filing them away, but in Anki, it's called suspending your cards. And then they're suspended out of view. And then you can selectively pull cards out, and that's called unsuspending, unfiling, unarchiving, specifically by video, by content, by lecture, by card, okay? And so now you can nice and neatly unsuspend. This is what Anki looks like when you first import it, the Anking deck. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess, okay? So let's break again. Can I pass step 1 without Anking? 100%, okay? It's just an efficient and structured approach to do active recall around resources built for step 1. What is suspending cards? Well, that's filing them away, right? Suspending card essentially archives them and organizes them, but now you don't review them. FSRS does not see them. It's not a new card. It's not a learning card. It's just archived away, not deleted. You can always unsuspend it. When do I suspend cards? So when you just imported a big deck, or when you're done, right? So after step 1, suspend those cards and maybe only keep some step 2 cards. Okay, should I create my own cards? I only did this if there was something I wanted to remember that wasn't already in the Anking, right? I'm not going to do double work. If the Anking already has a card that has a piece of information that's being tested, I'm just going to use that. If it doesn't, and I still think that's important, I'm going to make my own card. And I think for out of 20,000 cards I had over the course of the year, I had another 5,000 that were my own custom secret cards that I, encountered in uWorld or did things like that. Do I need to use Anki, Anking, or the third party? Absolutely not. Do what you want to do to be successful in medical school, what you like, what your goals are, etc. Okay, so the Anking comes in, compiles everything, saves the day, and the good thing is him and his team, found duplicates, right? What is a heart? What is the heart from Sketchy versus Boards and Beyond? And they said, hey, no, this is the same card. We're going to make it one card. But now if you use Sketchy, this is the card. If you use Boards and Beyond, it's the same card, right? So there's now a map that says for every video, here is where the corresponding location is in the file. So let me show that to you. In Boards and Beyond, in the Anking viewer, you can actually go to tags and click on Boards and Beyond. And then you can click on whatever you were studying, cardiology, and then you can click on arrhythmias, and then you can click on this specific video you have watched. And so this opens it up. And so here we are, 45 cards that were found, right? 45 cards up here for that video, right? So if you watch that video in preparation for your lecture, here are the 45 cards you can do. And then you just unsuspend them, right? Remember, they're archived, they're filed away. You unsuspend them, and then you can study them. Also notice up here, there is like some weird text in the search bar. Okay, what is that text? So that text is the tag string, which is almost the address of those cards. And so if I have this tag, this line of text, and I give it to Anki, it's going to give me those cards. It's the same thing. And we as a class have a spreadsheet where it has every lecture, every day, and then the corresponding tags for that lecture. Okay? So I give a tag to Anki, and Anki gives me the cards. It's like when I give a YouTube video to Google or a URL, right, to Google, and it gives me the correct YouTube video, right? That's all it is. And so if you have this, it'll give you the cards, right? Okay, if you have this, and then you add on another high yield tag, okay, it goes from 45 cards to only out of those 45, what are the highest yield cards you absolutely have to do for step one? And it's 6 cards, 45 to 6. It's a huge jump, but most of step one is actually bread and butter. Most of step one is actually the content that is just high yield. Okay, so Boards and Beyond has 21,300 cards. If you only use Boards and Beyond, which is more than enough to pass step one. If you use only high yield, it's 7,700 cards. So this is where I would start. This is what I regret not doing because it can save you a ton of time, and most of the test is high yield. It's pass-fail now, right? Okay, let's break. I watched a third-party video. Where are the cards? Well, go in the Anki browser, go to tags, Anking step 1 v12, or use a spreadsheet and paste the tag in directly. How do I know which third-party video to watch? So you can guess from the title, right? If it's bradyarrhythmia and there's a bradyarrhythmia Boards and Beyond video, do that. Ask ChatGPT, hey, I am having a lecture on this. What video should I watch? Or use the spreadsheet. Should I do all the cards for every lecture? The answer is absolutely not. I picked one third-party video for one lecture to prepare for it, okay? And that is 20,000 cards over the course of the year. The Anking deck for step 1 has 30,000 cards. So I didn't see 10,000 and I very comfortably passed. And I think you could probably do it without. So, and this is where, this is all of the cards, right? So if you only do Boards and Beyond, only do the Boards and Beyond cards. Okay. Should I do all of the Anking cards for every lecture? No. I picked one third-party video, and I wish I would have done high-yield cards. At the very beginning, I think it would have consolidated how many reviews I was doing. I did a lot of reviews, too many, I think. Okay. Do I need to use Anki? No. Okay. So you have a lecture in the morning. Tomorrow morning, I don't know. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, bradycardia. What do you do? Well, the night before, you go to the spreadsheet, or you ask ChatGPT. Hey, I'm watching this lecture. Where do I find this? What video should I watch? And so then I find the video, I watch the video, and I do the Anki, right? I unsuspend, I do the Anki. Okay. Then 9 p.m., I go to sleep, right? Go to sleep early, right? No late nights. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I'm doing my daily reviews, right? I'm doing my daily watering of all the other cards that I've planted over the course of the year, right? And then I'm going to lecture. And at this point, I'm primed, I'm ready, I'm attentive, I'm listening. I'm just jotting a few little notes down that I want to make a custom card for that Anking did not cover. But remember the problem? Well, one afternoon of one day is actually the prep for the next day. And so then I'm coming home, eating lunch, and I'm prepping for the next day. And this kind of got old. So instead what I did was I did my daily reviews, then I did my, Anking for that day, my videos and Anking for that day, and then I watched a recorded lecture on the back end, already primed, but now from the comfort of my own home, maybe on 2x speed, something like that. So let's kind of review this, how to do this. You pick a third-party video first, right? You have a lecture in the morning, pick a third-party video. You watch the video. You find the associated cards in Anki, and then you unsuspend those cards, and then you learn those cards. Okay. All right. In the end, I passed all the NYU exams. I had no dedicated, and I passed step 1. But, I was doing a lot of cards. I was stressed out by the end of the year. I was kind of burnt out. So just remember that everything has a price to what you do. Okay. And that's the end. Oh, but wait, there's more. If you give Anki an add-on number, right? A number, what it'll do is it will install an add-on, right? So if your Anki looks boring, you can make it have a background, right? If you want a heat map to say, I did a review every day, give me a blue square every time I do a review so you can fill it out better than your friends, you can give it a number and it'll install an add-on. You have an image occlusion generator from this to this. Your browser can go from here to there, write more new fields. You want colorful tags to find things easier, you can color your tags. Okay. Anki remote, do Anki on a little remote, do Anki with the whole family. Amboss add-on, this one's actually pretty cool. It'll scan and hover for any kind of vocab, and when you hover over it, it can kind of give you a better definition from the Amboss library, and it'll actually scan the reviews you're doing in Anking and generate question banks so you can resynthesize that information after you do it. The reality is you do not need add-ons. Add-ons are like the fancy shoes that people think they need to run. The reality is these are good enough, and you just need to go out and do the Anki. Okay, thank you so much. That is the actual end of it. And if you want to learn how to use Anki, I created this very quick website. So it's called, emboldo.com/the Anki tutorial. And essentially what it is just a very quick click through, how do I find a card by tag tree. You have a video, you click through it, you go to Anki, and there's a full screen mode, and then you go to browse, and then essentially there's little steps at the end, and you can scroll all the way down, right down here, and it'll pause for you so you can kind of catch up. And this will be here hosted forever and ever. And you can click on it, right? And so essentially you can click through this. There's a little bit of a explanation video. So if you find this helpful, again, there's everything you need to know, I think, for med school Anki, nothing more. How to install your first add-on, your heat map add-on, and then when it's time for clerkship, how to suspend step 1 only cards, and then how to find Anking cards by shelf exam. And that's it. Thanks so much.